Good to learn out. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'll call you when I need you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll start in 5 minutes. I just want to walk off. Yeah. Um,
We do what we can. Yep. You're good. Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope everyone had a good lunch and enjoyed the last presentation, whichever one that you have attended. Again, if you missed my introduction in the morning, my name is Shannon Field. I'm one of the volunteers with the Indigenous Physical Activity and Cultural Circle. Just for those online, a quick reminder that all of the sessions are being recorded. And so we just ask that everyone keep your microphone and video off until time for questions. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Fran Ermineskin. So Fran is a proud Nehiyaw Iskwew from Maskwacis Four Nations in Alberta and Dean of Indigenous Education at the Maskwacis Cultural College, is currently enrolled in a PhD program for leadership studies at Gonzaga University. As an alumnus of the University of Alberta for Bachelor's of Education, she applies her teacher background by being an active advocate for Indigenous education. Fran has developed programs and courses for Maskwacis Cultural College with an emphasis on personal leadership. As a team, she and her husband, Randy, provide consultation with other organizations on building leaders and have established many projects and events together, both in Maskwacis as well as other communities. They have 4 adult children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter. She is proud to see her children following in her footsteps and showcasing their own leadership skills, serving the nation's members and the community. In the summer of 2022, Fran designed and offered a Youth Leadership Summit for the Ermineskin Cree Nation member youth aged 14 to 19. The youth gained insight and knowledge in the area of the treaties, governance, and leadership. In addition to education, Fran's former sports involvement as a participant and as a manager include track and field, fastball, soccer, basketball, and rodeo. Today, she enjoys traveling and watching her family in her own sporting events. So a big welcome to Fran, and she will be presenting a leadership model for working with youth. So welcome.
Yeah, you can all see that. It's easier to see from that side. I can do this. I'm okay with it. Just okay. So welcome all of you. Just give me a hands up who works with youth right now. Everybody. That's a pretty big undertaking. And I know, like, for us for years and years, it's been our life. So I'm kind of my daughter did this for me. And she forgot one word in there, working with Indigenous youth. So please accept my apologies for that. So thank you for the welcome. That was a little bit, and I didn't even write it. It was my daughter. I'm going to speak to that after. Okay, what do we press here?
It never works the first try.
Okay, so I was listening to Alana Cook this morning, and I thought, gee, that's a lot of information about acknowledging the land where you're at. And I think that's a really important thing. And I was talking to Sean, I was thinking, I don't even know how to pronounce this place. So forgive me for not practicing it, but I want to acknowledge that we are on traditional territory of the BC Indian tribe of this territory. And I was thinking about that as she was talking earlier. You know, you find your own words, how you acknowledge that. And when I had to do an immersion class on Gonzaga University last year, she said, try to get somebody from that territory to come and be with you. And I thought, but these are all Nehiyaw in our language. They're non-Indigenous. So in my own words, I said, you know, I want to acknowledge the territory of the Spokane Indians. So as I present it, and I thought, you know, we're learning as we go. And I thought that was a really important lesson for me as, you know, going forward, acknowledging the people of that land. So what did you press? Oh, okay, great. So, so some of you who know, who may know our Cree language, Awina, who, Nia, who am I? So to begin with, I was given a little bit of an introduction on who I am, but I'll take it back a step further. I'm a wife of a chief, I'm a daughter of a chief, and I'm a granddaughter of a chief. So that kind of puts a lot of pressure, not in a bad way, but responsibility on me on how I present myself. And so in moving forward, I have to always maintain being humble and not being proud. And so I just think about those things all the time, because a lot of the leadership skills that I developed over time started with those generations. And so I'm really humbled to be here. Okay, so when I was texting my daughter back and forth, this is when I'm thinking about something, when I'm contemplating something, actually I'll back it up, sorry. Awinania, I was introduced as we have 4 grown children, and they're all on their own, and they're leaders in their own right, and we're so proud of that because they're always starting different projects, events, and they don't need our help anymore, which is a really big deal, and that says a lot. That says a lot. So they're always out in the community or else, you know, out and about, and they're always starting something. And that really makes us feel good because we can sit back and say, you know what, we did a good job. And so we have only 1 son. We have 3 daughters. They're all educators. They all have their BEd degrees. And Randy and I are both educators as well. And he had to stop his PhD program just to be chief. That's another big responsibility, but I continued. So I'm just finishing. I had a second thoughts of presenting because I have a deadline Wednesday to hand in a really major paper, and that's for my candidacy. So I was just like, I was just stressed. I told Rosalind, she's Randy's adopted sister, so she's my adopted sister-in-law. I said, I don't think I could present. I'm really stressed. But my name was on the thing. I said, okay, I will. But the great thing is what I'm presenting is what I'm writing about. So I'm putting this in reality, like it's for real. I don't like writing something. I don't like writing academically or scholarly because they said, but I can put this like, no, it's me. It's about what I'm doing. It's about what can really, really happen. So it felt better. It felt better from that perspective. And I'm from the Maskwacis Cree. There's 4 tribes there. There's the Ermineskin, Sampson, Louisville, and Montana. I'm originally from Montana, but I married into Ermineskin, so I'm still there. Anyway, while we're I know this is the Nike quote, but just do it. For me, I think we coined that word a long time ago because when I was growing up, my late father was a rodeo competitor, contestant, and advocate for sports in general. And we grew up in a really big family. There was 12 of us in a really small house. And we used to always bring cousins home too. So that made more of us. But anyway, he'd put on a rodeo or an event. Everybody in the family had to get involved. You didn't have a choice. I was taking admission at the gate. I graduated into running the store. I could work at the store when I started learning how to count money. And then eventually I went into rodeo secretary. So that was more responsibility. So things like that, I grew up doing that. I thought that was normal. You know, everybody did it. So I was used to it. That's how come I thought, just do it. I mean, that's just the way it was in our family. My grandparents were running rodeos and doing different events, and as family, you were expected to be a part of it. And it's kind of the way it is now with the way we live, or we try to encourage our children. So let's thrive together. My daughter threw that in. So let's thrive together, move forward. So idea person. And I think what I wanted to kind of allude here to is that we all have ideas. We need to have these ideas always floating about. I know one thing, when we get together as a family, we think of something and we can make it happen if you really put your mind to it, if your heart is in it. And I think that's the real key to doing anything, especially with working with youth. You have to have a heart to work with young people. And I was listening to our friend Lynette this morning, and that was a really interesting conversation because Randy and I just met her in February, and at an education conference, and we started talking. She started telling us stories, and said, oh my gosh, and it was like a half-hour conversation. And Randy says, "Why don't you come and present?" So she was here this morning. So that was a really big deal. And her story just inspired me. I thought, oh, wow, she touched so many, she can, the 1 hour presentation she did, you know, reached so many people. And I was thinking, you know, that's how it starts. You inspire other people, you encourage other people. And so in the past, I talked about my late dad, how he brought us all on board. We didn't have a choice. You work. Same thing like in powwow events and track and field events. I remember Randy, every time he starts an event, I'm automatically signed on. That's how come I put manager on there because I was managing the track team. I was managing his ball clubs. I was managing whatever it was that he did. And I didn't mind that because we were both working toward the goal. And it works into the future. Whatever it is you're doing, you want to have an impact on whoever it is you're working with. You want them. I was thinking about when we were coaching, all of our children have competed at the North American Indigenous Games, all in different sports. And Randy was coaching the track and field in Victoria Games in 98. I think that's when Victoria. Anyway, at the I was involved in his training of the team, and they trained so hard, so well, that one of the things that came out of it was none of the athletes got hurt. That's how conditioned they got. And one of the most remarkable things that I've seen, we're sitting there watching the I call them kids. In the morning, we're sitting up there, and one of the 15-year-old girls who was a sprinter, she got all the our athletes together, getting ready for track, and all of a sudden she started warming them up, and I thought, we didn't tell her to do that. She was doing A's, B's, C's, and just, you know, run, stretch, whatever. I thought, it rubbed off what we were telling them, or what Randy was telling them. You know, you train the others and it rubs off. And then I kept that with me for a lot of years. And then all of a sudden her and Randy teamed up to run for council 3 years ago. And I told, she came to the house at one point and I said, I want to tell you something. I said, I seen leadership qualities in you a long time ago. And I pointed out that thing right there. And I said, you started warming up the team before Coach Randy even went down there. And she said, oh, it was no big deal to her, but to us, you know, seeing the athletes you're working with to actually do that was a really big deal. So I shared that with her, and it meant a lot to her. And so you don't know, whatever you're doing now, it's going to come back in the future. Your athletes, people you talk to, the people you have an influence on, they'll come back to you. You'll figure it out. Okay, so this is what our kids, well, at least my girls, they get really annoyed at me because they'll come up with something and they'll always say, well, what do you think, Mom? I said, well, you'll figure it out. And they get so mad at me. But I grew up in a time where, like, we didn't have much. We didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't even know we were poor, but we were happy. We had each other. But my mom and dad, they always figured it out. It was not a big deal. So that's how come I always have that within myself is, you know what, you'll figure it out. Don't let the world come crashing on you where you can't go forward. So they get really annoyed at me, but I don't stop saying it. I just say, you'll figure it out. But yeah, that's just something I wanted. I was surprised she put it on there. So right now, I work for our community college in Maskwacis, and it's called Maskwacis Community College. And we're currently going through an accreditation phase, and hopefully we'll be a university at some point, because we're already offering master's programs. And I should have showed you a picture of our tiny little college. It's like trailers that are condemned, but we're still running so many programs, college diploma, certificate diploma degrees, now master's degrees. Nothing is stopping us from doing that. So, you know, that says a lot for the commitment of our community, the commitment of our organization, the commitment of our leaders to continue this, you know, in moving forward. But on personal leadership, because we finished our master's degrees in leadership, that was kind of what I really, really wanted to focus on in providing academic programming. So we took a personal leadership course in our master's program. So what I did was I didn't water it down, but I created a college level course on personal leadership. So that course now is part of every college program. The students have to take a personal leadership course. And I think it's really important, because you don't realize we need, I think that's one of the things that's really important. We have to build leadership skills in our young people as they're moving forward. Because if they don't have those leadership skills, you know, they'll run into, they're going to run into walls. And I think it's so important, because building leadership skills is not only in politics, but it's it's in every area, sport, health. It's you know, even our social work program has a leadership course in it. I think, wow. So, you know, I really push this, and we're currently developing a master's education program. And I'm really pushing for a master's in educational leadership. So, you know, it's a catch-22. We have to make it work everywhere as much as we can. And I know I'm pushing leadership, but like the example I gave of this one young athlete who was warming up the other athletes, I think, you know, that's really important. I think, and I asked my husband to be a part of this too, because he can speak to a lot of this, and he'll say a little bit more about it after. Okay. Did you want to say anything right now, Randy, before I go into this? Because you're going to speak mostly to it, but about Trudy and. Okay. All right. So the personal leadership course that we developed at the college, that's offered in the certificate programming, one of the instructors that I've handed over that course, because I had to teach other courses at the university level, so I handed that college level course to a young teacher who I used to teach in USEP. Then his education diploma, then he went on to get his degree, then he came back to join us. So I handed over that course to him, so now he teaches it, and he has a lot of fun doing it. But the last time I taught this course, I used the leadership challenge model, you know, inspiring a shared vision. And there's 5 areas in that one, but I had, like, I don't want to say I inspired the students, but I just got them out of their comfort zone. Yeah, you can lead, And I had 3 students in that class running for council. That wasn't my plan. But it was so funny. To me, it's a funny thing because, like, I want them to stay in school and I want to inspire them to be leaders. But they were so calm. They felt so good about themselves. Oh, I can be a counselor. I'm gonna lead, and that was okay. I was okay with that. And so I was just thinking about that when, you know, thinking about a lot of things during. But one of the things before I wanted to share this. This is where I was saying I have a deadline on Wednesday, and one of the quotes that I thought was really important for everyone, for myself included. It says, this is by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who passed away a couple of years ago. Do your little bit of good where you are. It is those little bits of good put all together that overwhelm the world. So that's a really important quote. And I think, you know, Bishop Tutu left a legacy for all of us. And he's one of the people that I really, really think admire, and as well as many other people, but him in particular, you know, bringing a peaceful atmosphere into a chaotic atmosphere. And I think that's one of the things that I really think is important. And just listening to all the speakers today or so far, I think everybody is kind of talking about that. And I think, you know, it's a lot to think about. The model that last year I was given the opportunity, because I work at a college and because my husband is chief of Ermineskin Cree Nation, I wanted to do a youth leadership summit. So we partnered. I asked my boss if I can talk with Ermineskin and give them a proposal, and she agreed to it. So I talked with the chief and his council, and they approved a budget for me to go forward in delivering a youth leadership summit. And I thought, oh, this is so cool. And so putting it together, I thought, well, what is it? It's for specifically for Ermineskin youth, but what is it that I would like them to know? And because we're a college, I thought they need to know their history. They need to know how the governance system operates. They need to know about treaties, because there's a whole lot to know about there. But typically, I wanted to grow, or at least plant a seed in them to want to be leaders. And so those 4 areas is what we focused on the very first leadership summit that we ever had at the college. And because we're a college, I was able to give them all certificates so that they really appreciated that. And so, you know, we told them it'll look good on your resume. And as you go forward, people will realize, wow, you know, you're serious enough to want to do something like that. So I thought that was really important for young people, because this is a lot of information, but this is something we've been talking about as a college, as a nation, that our young people need to know their history, that our young people need to know their rights, our young people need to know who they are so they know how to go forward. So I want my husband to come up and talk about the history and governance and treaties. Yeah. I don't know what else. Oh, yeah. I'll do this one after. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really honored to be here. I'm one of the founding members of IPAC, and I think we were in New York at the United Nations at the time when Rosalind and I said we need to do something, and it all happened just over coffee, and we were waiting for our accreditation at the United Nations to present the paper, and then we got to talking and saying we need to figure out a plan to do something. And for me, what we're doing here today is really something for me because of what I've been doing in the past. I don't know if there's a bio on our website about what I've done in the past, and I've been privileged being in a residential school. I always talk about that story, and when I speak all over it, and this Wednesday I'm leaving for London, England to go meet with the King. So I've been privileged with my background of what I've done in the past, and being in a residential school where everything always circles back, and that's what I'm preparing myself to do, is to write up. My dissertation will be on teaching on leadership and how you can foster leadership, how you can manage, and it's a difficult thing for me. I think you need to know about our history, but the one thing that really resonated with me is this past year. Well, before Christmas, I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was after Christmas. We went to John Fogerty concert. I kept thinking about, what am I going to write about my paper? You know what? September? And you know what came up on the screen? 1969. Everywhere I went during that whole time, 1969. That was my first year, my first day of going to residential school. So everything just kind of talks about what I'm going to write about is starting from 1969, my first experience at a residential school. And to this day, I think about that. If I see scrambled eggs, it took me 30 years to eat scrambled eggs again from being in a residential school, because that's all we ate just about every day. And they didn't look yellow as what we have now, right? They would look gray and whatever. But I always think about that. Well, what am I going to write about? Sorry. And so I had to think about not only my own history, but the history of our people. So when I talked to my kids when they were growing up, we drive along the countryside and I always say, can you picture our ancestors camped out here in teepees, tents, how beautiful this land was? We were talking about that this morning and mentioning that how important it is for us to recognize and remember who we are. And I was given a Cree name, I became a chief. And they had two names for me before. When they went to the ceremony, they had one name. And 2 days before when they were going to do the headdress ceremony, the war bonnet, they said, oh, we went into a ceremony again. We have another name. And they kind of pulled me aside and talked to me about it. And the first one is, they were going to give me I'm his grandson. So I have I don't know if Fran has a picture on my phone. If you remember the Pope's visit, I wore that headdress, and the feathers there are over 125 years old. So I cherish that headdress because that's my great grandfather, the first ever chief from Ermineskin. And so I really, right now it's getting refurbished. So I take a great deal of pride in my history. So I always think about that. We have to go back before treaty, before contact. We had a way of life. Can you imagine this land where we went into that little visualization this morning, where can you imagine what was here before? People, right? So there's a lot of things that weren't appreciated about our First Nations people. They loved the land, but not the people. So we have to go back and I always talk about those truths. An elder told me, he said, there's my story, there's your story, and there's the truth. And that's what we're getting back into, is that we're trying to realize, and sometimes we have to get uncomfortable about talking about all those things, but we have to go to that place where, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah, it's going to be sad. But at the same time, we have to point our young people into a direction, say, yeah, we had a past that we have to be proud of, and we have to take pride in, but also recognize that we had a system of governance. And that's what we're going back into this place. When Fran will talk about one of our lead lawyers, and she's Cree. And same thing with Willie, my brother Willie Littlechild will be here tomorrow morning, and I think he's landing just as I speak. And we're going to talk about how important our Cree terms are, because you hear in the news when governments sign agreements with our First Nations people, they talk about, oh, it is a protocol agreement. But for us, I always tell people, we got to break it down to our language. We have the different, Rodney will know that. We talk about protocols. There's certain protocols we have to follow in our customs, if we want to get advice or if you want to get wisdom or what, whatever it is, there's certain protocols that we have to follow. So for me as a chief, I challenge our council members, read through your documents carefully. Try to understand the terms, because in the legal sense, all our lawyers know from textbook, right? And they say this is how it is. But for us, we can break down a term even more so from the root words and then think about that. So that's why it's so important that once they understand the root words and the meanings of them, and for us, when we translate our Cree into English, we lose meaning. That's why we have to go back into our histories. And so a lot of our elders are talking about all these Cree terms and they're helping us realize that, hey, there's balance. It kind of ties us into the land. So before I graduated from my first degree, my mom was dying on her deathbed. She was a week before she passed away. She came and said, "I'm so proud of you," because I'd go from my studies right to her room right till 11 o'clock. And I'd drive home an hour and a half home. And one evening she said, "Come here. I'm so proud of you." I said, "This is all in Cree. I'm so proud of you, but come here. I want to tell you something." So I kind of leaned over beside her, and her mouth must have put my ear, and said, "I'm so proud of you. I want you to go home and help your people. But don't you ever become proud." It says, "I'll come back from my grave and I'll just slap you around." I think about that all the time, because it's so important for us to realize that, right? But one thing that always still sticks with me today said, hang around with people that have their hearts close to the ground. Be humble. So that's something that, I always think about, is that we have to come to a place, if we're going to share knowledge and wisdom and share a story, we have to be humble in everything that we do. So that's how I do my leadership. I don't usually get upset with my counterparts, even though it's going through a tough time right now. Because when I first started, we had our first day of work, our first COVID case, right to 1,800 in a matter of days. So for 2 years, we were just shut in. And people were upset with me, said, "This is not our Cree way. Why are you locking all the entrances down?" But we had to protect people. So to this day, I'll still stand to it, right? Because I kind of believe in, well, it'll never hit us till I got COVID. And it really affected me a whole lot because I couldn't go anywhere. But in the meantime, while I was having people, we were guarding our entrances and trying to protect people from any kind of things coming in. And for 8 months straight, I wouldn't go to meetings. Finally, one day they said, "Oh, we have a chief's meeting. You'll be protected. You'll be safe, Randy. Don't worry." And I thought I had to really think about that really, really hard. Well, here I am trying to lay down the law, and here I'm the first one trying to leave the reserve to go to a meeting. That one meeting, that's why I got COVID. Right. And so those kinds of little things really affect us, and we have to continue on that path of what are we protecting? Who are we protecting? What are we doing to help the people realize that we're doing just the best way we can, right? And that's like I said, governance in a way that we have to lead by example, but with humility at the same time. But there are times when you really have to really change a lot of things the way you think. And like in today, I'm happy where we are, because I'm just finishing off my last few months of my term. I'll be done in the end of September. And I decided this time I'm not going to run again. People are just upset and sad, but I have to do this because I really want to finish my PhD so bad. I'm jealous of Fran because she's about 4 courses ahead of me. But you know what happened in 2020? Was it, Fran, or 2021? When they found the 215 unmarked graves. You know what the course I was taking at the Gonzaga University? Forgiveness. Oh man, I couldn't. It just, that announcement alone just triggered my past of going through residential school. The reason why I say that is that we have to know about our histories and the way our governance was. And so it really triggered me because I cried for 2 weeks straight. And Fran, for the first time, we had a gathering that night I was gone. I can't remember where I was. I was golfing maybe with friends. I got home and her and the daughters were talking and said, "What's Dad going to do?" And that's the first thing. What's dad gonna do? So when I got home, well, what do you want me to do? So we gathered all our people together, and we have a big arbor in Ermineskin, one of the biggest arbors probably in the world, I'll say, where we have our powwows. And so I got all the chiefs together. I said, we should do this, have a gathering, and just during COVID. And we got together, and we had everybody situated in different areas, little groups where they can protect each other. And but all people could do there is just hug each other and cry. So that was a hard thing for me, and I couldn't even keep it together. It was my turn to speak. I don't think I even finished anything. Even during all the interviews with all the news people from Global, I wore sunglasses, but they couldn't see behind my sunglasses. I was just crying right through the whole interview, because the one thing that really spoke to me is that one day my good friends passed in 2009, and he said, Randy, were you the lucky ones? One of the lucky ones. What are you talking about? Because there was a few bunks aside from me. And he said, yeah, do you remember that one night that one guy came to get me? And I don't know who he was, I won't mention. But this is what he did to me. Oh man, he just went into detail what happened. I was so sad. That's what triggered me. So today, like I said, it's just when I heard that news, I just couldn't keep it together for 2 weeks straight. Think about a leader that has to be strong for your people, right? That's how I was. Oh, this crybaby spoke to me. That was me for 2 weeks. So there's things that we have to, I guess, not to be ashamed of, is that you have to be emotional in certain parts of your life, and you have to see people see those things, and so that you can grow together. So like, I just want to make sure there's a little bit of emphasis on that. But been on a prowl this last little while where everywhere I speak, let's talk about the truth. Let's talk about the hurts and the pains. And that's why I want our young people to learn about our histories, the way we used to govern each other. We had a system of leading and say, well, we're going to go on a hunt. Let's plan this together. We didn't have all these terms that we hear in industry where they say, well, this is about supply and demand. We just took whatever we needed, not store for future, right? It was just for that time. And that's something that the governments and everybody needs to hear about, our societies. So there's only one society that's left in our community. That's the Hobo Society. And the last person died here about less than a year ago. And he used to look after all the debts in the community. So we're thinking about all those things. Let's start those societies again, once again. So we're going back to those traditional things that are so important for us, and how we can begin to come together and become unified, but also loving one another, understanding. So now we can go back into the treaties. Why there was life before treaties, but how important the treaties are, a relationship with the crown. And that's why it's so important for them. If we want to develop leaders, they got to know the past. They got to know about how we used to govern ourselves, and how important the treaties are for our own survival. Because when you look out there, that's what treaties did. Treaties are an answer. Treaties can bring us to some conclusions, but they can bring some definitions to a lot of the things we're doing, because we shared the land, agreed to share the land. We never gave it up. We agreed to share the land with the newcomers. If it wasn't for these contributions, and Willie will talk about that. I was at that one meeting where one of the elders, he had passed away. This was can you think about this? 1988. We were at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, and one of the elders came to talk about, what are we going to do about the environment? And you know what? One of our Canadian government officials came over. Oh, you guys think you're experts in this? You know what he said? Well, if you don't respect that, who's going to speak on behalf of the four-leggeds? Who's going to speak on behalf of the wildlife that are out there, the winged animals? That was a teaching moment for me. I just thought, I didn't think about that, because all I was doing there is trying to be angry But at the same time, we were for our own livelihood, but not realizing that everything around us is relative to what we do. You know what came out of that situation, came out of that? Our contribution, climate change. That's when it first came up, that term. And that's what we have to be proud of as First Nations people, is that we've contributed. That's how your ancestors survived on this land. Our people showed them how to hunt, showed them how to set up camp, showed them how to survive in these brutal winters, right? And so there's things that we have to understand about these histories and how important treaties are, because everything happened for our own survival. So now we're in this part where we're talking about leadership. What is traditional leadership? The name that was given to me, and going back to my Cree name, well, we went back into ceremony. What do you think about this? And it's really, I guess, interesting, the name that they selected, and from my own background, because I'm a Christian as well. But they said, Randy, we gave this name. They came and talked to me, circled around me. We're just before the ceremony itself. They said, oh, we have a name for you. It's Maskwacis. And I thought, I can honor my grandfather from my mother's side, which was the Lightning family, and his name was Wasis. But Wawasenam means he who throws the light. It's ironic in what we do, what I do now, the kind of work I do is I really promote treaties. So I have a lot of influence over chiefs across Canada. And when I speak, they listen. I'm privileged. All because of 1969, when I went back, grade 3, we had a teacher in grade 3 that lied to us. It's funny. It's a funny story. Her last name was Richard. At the time, hockey was Rocker Richard, Henry Richard, and she got us to believe that, oh, my brothers are these two individuals. Can you write down 3 goals? And he said, so I wrote down 3 goals for myself. And the first thing I said, I want to be a teacher, phys ed teacher. Second one, I want to be a professional hockey player. Third one is I want to be in W. I was just looking at the magazine and said, BMW. I have accomplished 2 of those things. I became a phys ed teacher. The only reason why is I want to be a better teacher than what I have in these residential schools. They were mean. Oh, man. I remember being strapped and hit with a yardstick and my ears pulled and my cheek pulled, all because I couldn't pronounce a word, because all I could speak was Cree. So it was hard for me to learn that borrowed language, but I've been successful at the same time using that, because I moved away when I was 15 to play junior hockey. One of the first ones in 1975 to move away from Ermineskin. And I played in Edmonton for 5 years until I was 21. I met Fran when I was 20, I think. I had to move away to go play professional hockey in the United States. I played for St. Louis Blues and New Jersey Devils farm team back then. And my roommate was Reggie Leach. Now, maybe young people wouldn't even know who he is, but I was just in awe because he won 4 Stanley Cups with Philadelphia Flyers, and he was First Nation. Man, I was just living the dream. But I always think about that. I've been on both sides of the fence, but at the same time going to what I'm doing now, realizing how important our past can be to help us be successful in the future. Leadership. My dad was 45 years in leadership. My brother was chief for 24 years. So it's been a part of my life. But what Fran didn't tell you is that she used to be a professional barrel racer. She competed at the national finals and Calgary Stampede, which is, you have to go by invitation, right? So we think about these things. And for me, I played professional fastball as well. I used to just travel to the States all the time. So all these things I've become privileged because sports saved my life. Residential school is hard. What you hear, what you've seen. But I used to just go out there and skate on the ice and just be outside just so I can be away from all the predators. I knew something was happening, but I had to be away. So I started playing with the older individuals in our dorms, and I became better and better and better. But all because I just knew something was going on. I had to stay away from those people. And I still remember who they are. But I'm really thankful, like I said, is because of my experience and what I've been able to share with Fran, is that we have to teach our young people. But I thought I'd just share that with you, and I'll let her finish. But I'd really like to. I share this, and now I'm on speaking tours and wherever I go. I raised last year for one organization, just my speech alone raised $500,000. I told you guys, you guys got to pay me more. I was laughing. Come on.
Thank you. Thanks, son. You could tell we're a team, eh? But anyway, thank you so much, hon. One of the things that I wanted to share, going back to family, like I'm really humble. I don't share my life. I don't share myself with a lot of people. Randy knows who I am, but it's not really about me. And I was the first of my family, our siblings, to finish high school. I was the first to go to college. I was the first to go to university. I was the first to get a master's. Now I'm the first to be in a PhD program. And first of my cousins, my aunties and uncles. So it's a really big deal in our Ermineskin Curry families. And my daughter, Kristen, she says, Mom, why don't you share that? Why don't you tell people that? But for me, it's not about being first. It's about building other people up as you journey along. And for me, it's really like, I love to see people grow. I love to see people take leads. And I get so inspired by young people, by anybody who does something. So I just put on here necklace story. So the first time Randy got elected as chief, 2014, our first powwow was 2015. And I don't know boo about being a chief's wife. So, oh my gosh, oh, Fran, you got to come with me. You got to be in the grand entry. Oh, what do I do? So I had nobody to tell me these things. Yes, my mother was a chief's wife, but my mom, she stayed home and raised us. We didn't go to all these events, so I didn't know. And my sister-in-law, Sandra, who was wife's chief as well, she said, always, she shared at different times, you have certain things you can do, certain things you cannot do, in our culture. And okay, that's not enough. So my sister, Kara, she got me some outfit. She said, here, this is for you, the grand entry. She said, okay. So I put one outfit on and I thought, well, this necklace will work. So, and then Randy come and get me, says, okay, Fran, you ready? We got to go, because there's 4 grand entries in a powwow every direction. So the first night I came out, and our friend, we're camped right beside them. She comes out of her trailer. She looks at me. She said, wait a minute. She ran back into her trailer. She came back out. She put a necklace on me. So I went into grand entry. The next grand entry was the next afternoon. And I put on an outfit, like, I didn't know, like, I'm not out there. So all of a sudden, my daughter, Jamie, she says, oh, wait just a second. So she went running to her trailer and she came back. She put a necklace on me. And so, okay. And then the same thing happened that night. My sister, Joan, she just had, it was like a headdress, war bonnet necklace. She said, oh, wait, Fran. She took it off herself and she put it on me. Same thing 4 times in one weekend. None of these 4 women knew what the other did. But for me, that's such They don't even realize what they did to me. They filled me with their love. They, you know, being a wife to a chief, not knowing what to do, but they gave me the strength to do my duty, their responsibility. And so when my mom passed away, my daughter Jamie had made her, she's an awesome artisan, double cord necklace, and it's really beautiful. And every time I need my mother's strength, I put it on. So each time I presented at the Gonzaga University in our classes, I wear it and I tell them this is symbolic of my mother's strength. And so I thought, well, am I taking it to IPAC? and I thought, no, I already have my mom's strength. Today I'm wearing the necklace my daughter made me, Jamie. And I think about it because of this story. We created leaders in our children. Now I honor them and I lift them up. They're the ones who inspire us. They're the ones who just give us that, oh, tomorrow is another day. And their ideas, they just kind of like, oh, you're tiring me out with your ideas. But it's inspiring. You know, that's what we have to do, is create these ideas in young people so they'll take them and run. Take them and run. And create your own story. And this is something I love doing in the courses that I teach. I tell our students, you know what? You have a story. You have a story. I was driving, some of our own, tribal members. I looked over at her and I felt for a second a pang of sadness. But then I thought, what's her story? And I was thinking, everybody has a story, but we live to tell it, we live to write it, and we live to be better and encourage others. So I'm not even going to read through this, but this was just an overview of the program that we ran last summer. And what I thought was the most significant was, okay, if this leadership summit is going to work, we have to have the right people in place. So the facilitators, moderators that we got on board were young teachers, young people who really know how to inspire others. So I recruited my coworker, my daughter, said, I need you, I need you, I need you. So they came on board. And then we worked with different organizations. Some didn't really come through, but you know what? You keep trying, you recruit, you keep trying to bring people on board because you're selling something. And in this case, it was, you need to know your history. You need to know who you are. You need to know where you came from, so you know where you're going, and you need to know that you're a leader. So those, there were so many things that I wanted to emphasize in this 3-day summit. and the presenters that I brought on board, I was fortunate because we have such a good relationship with lawyers, with experts. So Sharon Venn, if you Google her, she's an international lawyer on treaty rights, and she's a treaty rights advocate, and she's such an awesome person. And Danica Lightning, she's one of our tribal lawyers, but she's not out there yet. Like she hasn't reached her full potential. And I thought, well, let's bring her in. Let's get her to help. Let's help her realize that she can do this as well, because she's like Willie, Uncle Willie Littlechild. He's like 77, 78. Somebody has to take over. And that's why we need to build leaders. Somebody has to take over. I don't want to do this forever, but I want to leave a legacy where somebody, you said enough for them to know what to do. So that's kind of what, and then the guest attendees, my husband was able to be an important part of like what he just did. He explained the history, treaties, and other areas. I'm not even going to yeah.
what Sarah and Ben talked about is that she brought in prints.
Mhm.
Blue means water, green means the grass, right? White is God and the creator. And then she talked about the significance of all these prints and how important they are in for our existence, and why they're symbolic to what we do. That we all like it. We talked about that. And how important it is that we have a connection to the earth, to the animals, and to the air and the water. And that's our life. And even our flags and everything else that we think about. Like some people, you go to sports events, they talk about we're going to sing our national anthem. For us, our national anthem is the flag song. So we're trying to inspire them to think about, hey, we had a system, and we have these connections. When you think about these principles from a ceremonial perspective, that's why it's so critical for us to understand, why do we do this? Why is there a drum? Why is and there's like I said, it kind of really helps you grow, and it kind of helps you think about, okay, I've learned this from the residential school. And now we have an opportunity to change this around and tell the different universities and the institutions, hey, you didn't teach us about our history. Now we're going to do it. We don't need your permission. We're doing it our own way in Maskwacis College. And they can't argue, because I teach at the University of Alberta and U of C. I turned the English, first and second year English, and took all the non-native authors out and put First Nations on. Hey, we're going to do it our way. It's going to be called the theme is resurgence. And I always tell them, there's a tiny warrior inside. We're going to inspire and bring it out so that you can be a leader. That's how I teach you. And we're taking great pride when we bring in elders and they talk about all these things that we are witnessing, and we're doing an indigenous education degree right now, and everything is land-based. We tell people, go out, take your shoes off, stand in the ground. There's power on this. There's power on this ground. So we're doing all these little things that they'll at least go away thinking about how encouraging and how inspiring it can be.
Thanks. So one of the things that when I got feedback from the two facilitators that I recruited, because I thought, well, the young people will they'll gravitate more to other young people, right? I'm not putting myself down, but so they said, well, one of the things we wanted to emphasize is that the students that we brought on board would learn about their emotional, spiritual, physical, and academic, their supports of a great leader. And those are the areas that we really needed to touch on. It wasn't a lot of time, but at least, it was a pilot project. We wanted to see, how can we reach these young people? And because this is the model that I used last summer. Now we're running it again in July. So I'll be tweaking it a little bit, but this is something that anybody and everybody can do for your own youth of your community. What is it you want your youth to know? Of course you want them to know their history, right? You want them to know if treaties, you want them to know a lot, because our people need to know, our young people, our next generation need to know. So these are just things that the feedback from the students, they gain confidence. You need to believe in yourself. This is feedback from the students. Observation, you need to observe what's going on. Assertiveness, be humble, have experience, have a good mind, be creative in your ideas and your thinking, have the ability to create attention, like obtaining attention in the classroom, dipawin, a good balance in your life. You'll never get 100% following. And this was so cool. This is students' feedback, the ones that we had in our program. And I'm not going to go into that. It's just, this was part of the report that we put together for the people. And one of the facilitators, enlightening, we have maintained our freedom, our language, and our traditions from time immemorial. We will never give up. We never gave up. somebody had to suffer for us to be here. So she's maintaining that. One of the things that I wanted to refer back to the young lady that was she was warming up the track athletes, Trudy. I'll just say Trudy because that's anyway, when she came to visit us 3 years ago when she was running for council, we talked to her, encouraged her and everything, but she came to see me last fall and we had a really good visit. And she said, I need to tell you something. And I said, okay. She said, all those times that we were having track practice and we were traveling to track meets on weekends, she said, you guys don't even realize our home life. And she never shared this before. She said, my parents were alcoholics. There was drugs in our home. She said, that was our escape. Oh, right on, we have track practice today. Oh, right on, we're going to track meet this weekend. I didn't know that till last fall. And you don't know what it made me feel like. I thought, wow, because it took so much of our time. We gave up so much time. But when you hear something like that, it just made sense. It all came together. And then you realize that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. Get our young people out of situations like that and give them purpose. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. I know I'm not supposed to be closing off, but I'll share a secret with you guys. What I'm doing right now is a project. You're probably going to hear in about 2 weeks or so. Anybody know about the Ottawa Senators? They're on the market. I'm leading a group that's going to buy them. And he'll do an announcement. And if you heard it, they leaked it out on TSN about 2 weeks ago. That's our group. And we have Graham Rouston involved. And I went to Ottawa 2 weeks ago and they asked us, do you guys have room for Ryan Reynolds? It tells you something. And I think, why not First Nations? That's the first thing I thought about. I presented in 2014. I was laughed at out of the room. Oh, that'll never happen. Guess what? My phone's ringing off the hook. Can we join you? So it's a $1.2 billion bid. So if you guys can spare some money, that'd be nice. But we're leading the bid. So there's out of 16 groups down to 4. Now that there'll be an announcement within 2 weeks. So look out. And when you hear First Nations, that's us.
I have known Fran this morning. Thank him for what he does for his community, for his family, and for the people he serves, Fran. In our language, I'll say, I need to say, Maskwacis, no, very grateful for the work that he does. And I just want to share, you were talking about the honor later, fine. Here's my family always told me I was adopted by the stage family. Well, 25. It's a very high honor, but one of the teachers that taught me this, there's this like it was on vacation. All the people that we back to slowly the animals started in that. Towards the end of the evening, it's little all going back to the beach fire. Last weekend, it's my brother. And I guess we can all relate to this story that it was the chosen one to be in the health. He's simply in the blood. I'm just being there. I shared this with the young ladies on the film. And whatever it is that we do, just keep doing what you're doing. Our culture and our language back and forth. That free people maybe in front. That's the most important thing that is just,
Thank you.
And also acknowledging that. But did anyone have any questions? Well, we'll send BMW bags your way. All right, thank you, everyone. So that will conclude this session. I think we're taking a quick break just to transition. And then our next session will be at 3:30. In here, we have improving outcomes for Indigenous people living with chronic pain, program evaluation findings of a chronic pain management program in Vancouver's inner city. And something's happening in the gym. In the gym, if you want to know, it's honoring the voice